This is interesting. I've just got on to checking up some of these other miscellaneous charters, which are less well known than like the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights and the Petition of Right and other legislation. They've actually proved a little bit. It's the first time I've found the actual Charter of the Forest. I was looking for it before and I never found it. It's on National Archives now. Maybe it wasn't coming up in a search, I don't know, but I made a good effort to find it before. I've got quite a lot of charters to look through and go through now because I'm trying to find out the rules for making people jurats, and so forth. Also because you can get sworn in through Cub Scouts, and I'm going to see if it's actually valid because it was Baden-Powell and the House of Lords who invented it. Anyway, that's 1 minute of talking. Murage. So murage is a tax levied for building or repairing the walls of a town. We've got these words, pannage, pontage, and murage. Sheriffs, how to be immersed. Citizens acquitted of pannage, pontage, and murage. And how to be immersed. It says it's a tax levied for building or repairing the walls of a town. The word murage, the pontage and pannage, I've just been researching, but this has got me interested, this now. Murage. The thing is, you know, like Chester City walls and, you know, York City walls and Norwich City walls. I've always been interested in those city walls. You know, I know they go back to, like, you know, the Roman times. Particularly York goes back, you know, before Jorvik, you know, to like Lincoln, York, Chester, Norwich. I've always been interested in the city walls and like to go see them. But the thing with Murage, the word Murage is really, really interesting because with our ancient site here, it is. People are talking about it being, you know, having water flow around it, or at least if not like a stream or river past it, it's sometimes flooding with water. A nearby town called Murfield also suggests fields that flood with water. And I know that actually was prone to flooding with the river rising, going up and down. I've just actually been reading some of the charters, like the Charter of the Forest, and then some of the other charters, and they're actually referring to, they're making specific reference to long-held rights of actually, I'll show you. I'll get this up. So I thought Robert J. Langdon might be very, very interested in this. Nor shall any villain or free man be distrained to build bridges at the waterways unless they had been obliged to do so from ancient times and by right. So there must have been some certain, you know, bridges over rivers, and this is before they had canals, by the way. This is from the 1300 Magna Carta. I've not actually read this before because I didn't see this in the original Magna Carta. It's referring back to ancient times. So in 1300, it's got back with what are ancient times, you know. 1300, I think ancient times has got to be surely referring to actually before the conquest, maybe even Anglo-Saxon times or Roman times or even older, but they're referring to ancient times and by a right of waterways, distrained to build bridges at waterways unless they had been obliged to do so from ancient times and by right. So they're not wanting to block or build across water unless it's certain designated places that you've got a right to or that has always been there at an ancient time. I thought Robert J. Langdon might be interested in that because, you know, a lot of rivers had changing levels and so forth. But it's relevant to the word. So they've associated this word Murage with building walls, right, around cities and towns. But when you think of ancient times, right, you're talking about, really before the Roman conquest. So you're talking about even, like Maiden Castle and Embry Cross and Castle Hill and Armonbury, finally Tyres, and you're talking about Uffington, all these, they had big walls around them. The thing with Maiden Castle, right, and Old Oswestry is this. When you go to those places and they've got these huge kind of like walled surroundings, trenches, well, they're made out of earth. They're earthen, but they're huge. They're massive. They're like, as big as, when you go down the street, like the street lights and Maiden Castles are even higher than that. They're just immensely massive, but they're like waves. Like when when you see the ocean, the immensity of the ocean, like it's a massive thing. When you go to the seaside, it's massive, immense depths of water, and when there's really big, powerful waves. At Maiden Castle, it's Dorchester is quite close to the ocean, so when you're at Maiden Castle, it really makes you think of huge ocean waves, like and the immensity of them. It's just like it's the water is a defense of the island, but the water itself is a massive power. Now the thing with Murage is like like a mermaid. It's like MER, but the thing with and mermaids, they refer to water as mer because they use it. It's more French. It is more French, but the Normans brought over the French language, right? So when you use or see mer, you think of ocean. But what's that got to do with surroundings or walls around something, right? Or building them? Well, the island, England, is surrounded by water, and the wave-like surroundings, on the hill forts. It's almost like when you drop a stone in water and see the ripples go out. They've definitely got that idea and that kind of vibe, oscillations going on when they're thinking about that. Now, another thing when I'm thinking of Murage is like, when you're going back to, well, actually, the Bible was only really introduced after the Roman conquest with Christianity. So all those stories of, the three wise men following the stars, and the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and all the star, all the star signs like the horse and the serpent and, Orion's belt, which have actually, a lot of those shapes have got connections with the hill forts and the shape of them, and the Uffington White Horse with the star signs. This whole, the story of three wise men and the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, they're meant to be special sacraments, really, in a way. I cannot help but draw associations between, the religious or psychedelic experience and almost like kind of, if you call it a blessing in a way or religious insight, and the word myrrh or ocean, because you get the wave, you get these visual waves appearing in the visual field through that experience. Terence McKenna talks about this in his talks, and it starts to make me wonder if the places where you can go collect those sacraments, like particular fields, I start to wonder if there's some connection in the name Murfield, not just that it floods with water from the river, but also a field where you could collect. If anyone ever referred to that sacrament as myrrh, as one of the religious sacraments, I know that officially it's attributed to, gold, frankincense, and myrrh is an incense that you burn, a special incense. But I really start to wonder whether or not, going back to the Roman conquest, when Strabo and other writers were talking about, all the Celts throughout France, Gaul, and Britain painting their bodies bright colours and taking part in religious ceremonies, which I think was connected to the, long barrows and temples and, Newgrange and, Bellisnap and Bryn Celyn de Dhu and the other ancient sites. I don't think they've got an official term for the religious sacrament, a proper official word for it, other than the word sacrament, unless you think of a sack as in you can put things in a sack and hold them like a small bag or a large bag. But this Murage word, and like Murfield, and the fact we've got this ancient site here, that there's some mystery around this place to do with the surroundings and the walls of fortifications around it. And we've got Murfield. I think it suffered damage or some sort of attack or some kind of... Well, this is the thing. I think that the walls of it, I think the walls of that were modified or changed somehow. I don't know whether by the Romans when we were attacked or something like that. But there's an association with, if the Romans destroyed or massacred a lot of the religious monument sites and temples, not just oak groves, if they did, completely pull them to bits, which is why we've got a lot of, the bare dolmens left, if they just didn't naturally, deteriorate by the wind. I really think that there could be some connection, at least in the process of adapting, whether it's through damage or modification or whatever, of these waveform walls around not only the hill forts but even the actual ancient sites themselves, and the connection between governance of we've got at least with William the Conqueror, you got this Domesday and going around and taking account of everything, tax of everything, or even goes back as far as the Romans. I seem to get some kind of notion, at least, that that there's some kind of connection in the word Murage, and it's interesting. It's got the word rage in it as well. Rage, R-A-G-E, rage, Murage. If you drop myrrh, it's just rage, rage. If you drop myrrh, you've got rage. But Murage is almost like some kind of... maybe the Romans had Murage. Maybe they were, attacking with a vengeance and rage because of the sacrament and religion of the myrrh. And we suffered attack of the ancient sites. So I know it's throwing it out a little bit, and some people are like, "That's too much. You're throwing it out too much." But
Murage.
They also call manure. Manure. But it's usually in a pile, though. It's usually actually in a pile. Actually, manure is really good. It helps things grow. Let's have a little... You see, in Scottish Gaelic, rage means to boil. Boil. So it's like getting hot, like you get angry, you get hot, warm, or you actually turn red. That's interesting. Usually a boil is like something you get on your hand, like if you burn it, you get a boil, a mark. But also, like, boiling rage is to turn red. It's almost like being painted. You could like loosely associate that with like, like flushing, if you flush or turn red in a rage to boil, or actually when you boil a pot, it bubbles, doesn't it? Oh yeah, when you boil water, it bubbles, but a boil on your hand or knuckle is like a bubble, right? So to boil, right? If you boil water, you get bubbles in it, right? That's what happens when you heat up water. It bubbles, it boils. And if you get a boil on your knuckle, it's like a little bubble, even though it's like a little bubble in water. Now, so that in Scottish Gaelic is associated with being angry. Rage. Mutton Bailey. Boil it. Mutton Boiley. Mutton Bailey. You see that's what William the Conqueror built, all those Mutton Baileys. We've got one in Murfield. There is one in Murfield. There actually is there is a Mutton Bailey, which is like a round. That is like the Mutton Bailey is like literally like a mound, but it's like the thing with that little Mutton Bailey is we always think that it's kind of really old and ancient, but it's 1066. It's not like pre-conquest. It's not like it's not. They're not as old as like the Clogteach towers from the 800s or from before the Roman conquest, but they are like a boil shape, and that's interesting. Let's usage. Water is use. I wonder how you pronounce that. Right, yeah. You don't actually have to go to Norman. You don't have to actually get the Norman, the French. You don't have to get the French for myrrh, because if you remember, the Roman conquest over Gaul, the language, the Celtic language, the Gaelic language was, throughout Gaul and Britain and Ireland, with only slight variations. If you go back before French is French, so if you put C, you get ma. But also the word ma was to spoil, or you get the like Mars. You've also got Mars, right? Which is the all right, yeah. So boil. So the thing with someone said to spoil is to mar something. You're like, if someone put a cigarette burn in your jacket, it would be like to mar it, or to make a mark. The other interesting thing is that, like, like Mars, which was a planet, and they were keen on the observations with Stonehenge, and all of the planets and so forth, is like a little red dot. So that is is like Mars. Mars is a little red dot. So, like I said, with a boil, if you get a boil on your hand, if you scald it or burn it, right, you get a mark, like a sewer red mark. Now, someone can also do that if you anger them. If you anger them, they can get angry and come and take action. It's also that it's interesting to see, interesting that the water is, if you do burn yourself, you try and put it in water or cool it down, you know. Although they didn't have ice cubes back then, you know. So the ocean and the sea is mar and mer. It's connected through French. So you do actually have the kind of, and really the fortifications were really to protect from invasion. Really, I always like to think that to keep wild animals out, you know, of the villages and keep them in the forest and keep them away from, you know, major towns, but also from invasion. You know, they actually, funnily enough, Maiden Castle, they found all the, like, you know, like the catapult little stones, the catapult stones as well. They actually found those at Maiden Castle, where they've got the big wave-like walls. So that place is too big to make a mark on that place. But I wonder if we can get Welsh. But Welsh is, I don't know what it is with the Welsh language, but I think that they got carried away with Latin and got too many variations of words. I think that the Welsh language is quite similar to the Irish and Scots Gaelic, but with Welsh, there was a lot of creativity, and I think they ended up getting having more and more words for things, which is why they had a lot more creativity through the Middle Ages. Right, so we have got Welsh is connected. We've got more. C is more. But usually they use you see, like, you know, in Lord of the Rings, he's got Mordor, right? I think Mor's meant to be big though, but they've got it for Welsh there for C, big. Let's see what it says when you put big. Well, it's more. So like more. It spells, so in Welsh it's more, not just MOR. So it's ocean. The words for ocean is quite similar to big, vast. I think that might be a good word to suggest, like vast ocean, like big, vast. It's actually very, very vast when you have the psychedelic experience. Like the religious experience is quite vast, particularly a deep one. I'm gonna we'll go for Irish. Yeah, we got more. You see, look, this is interesting, right? Look at that for the C, right? So from English to so for Irish, for C, you've got farage, right? Farage. Now I said take note of the word rage, farage. So there is a word rage in here. There is, in this word, we've got rage, like in farage, but it's got the word mer at the start, which is like your more, like we said, or MAWR, more, right? So that's actually, you've got like a very, very, you've got the same parts of the words coming together, converging, which are in and around similar things, because you've got the waves, the big vastness of the ocean and the waves, right? And you've got the the fact that, you know, that to protect you from attack from people, you know, coming in anger, in rage, when they're angry, you know. But there's also the wave-like of the psychedelic experience, the religious experience, which is wave-like and also vast, and this you know, wave-like oscillations. So the thing with the Mur field and the fact that the ancient site's in there and the walls. There's something going back to the Gaelic language, the Celtic language, of this kind of like it's to do with like the shape and form of the land and energies and forces, you know. Understanding that language and how the people saw the world and how they spoke and what their words were and what they've actually ended up becoming now. So this word Murage is actually used for, it's associated with basically, you know, this is like it's to do with making or actually restore the restoration or creation, restoration or maintenance of protective walls, right? In association with like the cost of it or tax, costs and tax, which is almost kind of like, you know, so I really, you know, there's something in this to do. You see, the thing with like the dolmen, right? I guess I could put I could condense these ideas around these things into one thing, which is like the dolmen. So, you know, you've got like Glenjury dolmen, because that dolmen is very big, right? It's big. The huge stone is big, right? And yet the shape, when they create these burials, these mounds, these dolmens, they are like a boil, right? So it's the same shape, like a modern Bailey castle, right? It's like that shape, like dome. Like Domesday's taking account. It says here taxes to be levied. So you've got here like taxes to be levied to do with building or repairing walls. Well, the thing is, they built the mounds. They built the we've got one in Murfield, you know, one from William the Conqueror. They built the mounds. They used that form and shape, which was mimicking and copying the ancient burials of the ancestors, right? But they used them for governance, to come and collect taxes. They used them when they were, you know, Domesday was going about taking accounts of everything so they could collect tax from everyone, right? And they created these fortresses, but they made them in the like shape and form of the ancient sites, the burials, the mounds, right? So you have got a tax connection there. I know it's a very loose one, and if you know, you've got to be. There are people who aren't gonna. They're not gonna go with this, but that's just their problem, right? It's not. This video is not for those people. For people who, you know, they aren't going to be sold on this and they're not going with it, this video is not for you. This video is for like the other people who, like, you know, think like me. So there is an association with collecting taxes from the conquest, right? But why did they choose that? They could have made all kinds of different designs and shapes, but they built these mounds which are almost like, it's in a way it's like what the Germans did when they built the gas chambers. They built them in the form and shape of a lot of sites like Newgrange and Bellasnap, like the ancient sites and chambers, because it's intimidating to your enemies, right? When they're using the gas chambers for what they use them for, and they make them, it looks like they're sending into the ancient sites to die, not to go into a religious experience and come out enlightened. You don't come back out, right? So this is the thing with William Conqueror and the idea behind Domesday, although it's way after the Roman conquest. But I think the Romans are the ones who came to destroy the network and infrastructure of that religion, right? Because that's where the power base was for it with the Druids, not just law and order or judicial capacity. It was through the religious capacity, which the Romans made illegal, and they really wanted to wipe it out, right? So, the thing with building a dolmen is you got to lift up a massive, heavy stone, and the Glen Druid one's a brilliant example. There are other examples, and then they put the cap on, and then they cover it with earth, and then it is like a boil shape, like a mound, right? Like a pile or a mound, and but it's to protect it. It's to protect the ancestors, the remains, the memory of the ancestors, right? So it's like a protective wall around the town or a city, and either to create that, right, is to, that's what William the Conqueror was doing, but he didn't do it with, burials. He did it with, his administration centres for taking over the country, and justice and taxation, which Domesday, right? It's funny that in Murfield there is such a dome, So that was definitely a taxation centre. So, this Murage is quite interesting, for building or repairing the walls of a town. So, I just want to throw that in there. I'm going to put this in evidence from our ancient site, because there's something in the name of the town Murfield, and the fact that it's just next to, where the ancient site is at Dalton, and, it's kind of, Murfield. I still think Murfield could be, the place where, you could pick and collect sacrament. But, that's debatable and arguable. So, still interesting. I find it interesting when I found this word Murage. But, more, definitely, there's some Welsh and Irish words in there. In and around getting angry, big, Mars, red spot, oceans and waves and so forth. So